A few weeks ago, I was down in Southern California taking a look at the Kia Carnival. Today, Travis and I are out here in North Carolina taking a look at the Sienna Hybrid. Everybody wave to Travis. He's going to join us talking in just a moment because the Sienna is the ultimate minivan for a lot of shoppers. It has the highest efficiency ratings, 35 to 36 miles per gallon. It's available with all-wheel drive. It's focused on minivan practicality and, of course, has Toyota's legendary hybrid system reliability baked into the pie. And there have been some changes for 2025, so let's take a look at those. First off, Travis, what do you think of the look? Are you a fan of the Sienna's design, or are you more Team Carnival with that un-SUV, un-minivan thing going on there?
I don't at all mind the fact that this embraces that it's a minivan, and it's actually made a minivan look fairly cool. Whatever that means, I think it's true here on the Sienna.
Yeah, you guys let us know in the comment section, do you like that boxy crossover SUV vibe, or do you prefer the more rounded proportions? I will say that some angles of the Sienna strike me as a little bit unusual. It's certainly more aerodynamic, and that's probably what leads to the higher efficiency numbers. The rounded sections up front, the sort of two-tiered front end design with those full LED lights. Today we're taking a look at the fully loaded Sienna Hybrid, of course. So this one has some of those newer features that are now available for 2025. There's no disguising that this is a minivan from the side. And interestingly, I don't know what you think about this, Travis, but I've always found it interesting that all of the minivans available in North America are almost exactly the same size on the outside. There's only fractions of an inch that really separate them all.
Yeah, it seems like a big grand conspiracy, but ultimately I think it's just finding what fits for the market. And the fact is that these are only sort of competing against each other, right? It's not nearly as competitive.
Yeah, and I'll grab the camera from Travis here, but why don't you go and look at the back here. What do you think of the back end design? These taillights here, and this sort of fishtail look where the taillights separate.
Yeah, so it's sort of an aggressive look here for the taillights. They end up fairly sharp, but they do split out. There is still a bit of a bubble included. Overall, simple design, but it actually gives me a little bit more Lexus, I think, than it does Toyota.
I would agree with that. We have a bumper that doesn't stick out too far from the back. I am a little bit concerned about this shiny black plastic, though. I think that's going to really scratch easily over time. Also, I know this is a bit of a controversy, but we now have the Beyond Zero badging on a vehicle that is literally before zero. So, you know, make of that what you will.
I don't think that'll change anytime soon.
Now, one thing worth noting is that the Carnival does have a larger cargo area than the Sienna. Some of that has to do with the way the hinge design is done for the fold-in floor third row. It folds in the floor in both vehicles. We have a slightly larger storage area over here on this side, but in our 24-inch roller bag testing, we were able to squeeze 2 more 24-inch roller bags, oddly enough, in the Carnival than any other minivan.
That Carnival is a little bit more square than the rest of them, though. Yeah. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It kind of lends to the SUV vibe that it's going for, but overall, I like that we still get tons of space. That's the beauty of a minivan.
And then, of course, we have the numbered handles here for this seat design. So it's number 1 there. And then number 2 is basically you just throw it in the floor. So that's kind of a handy touch. It is pretty easy to do one hand there, as you can see, holding the camera. But if you want fold in the floor second row seats, you have only one place to shop, and that's the Chrysler dealer, because that's the only one with that feature. Not with the hybrid, though, oddly enough.
No, there seems to be some carryover, not in the powertrain options, right? Because if they're all the same size, and that's what we're talking about, is these minivans all being very similar. If you want a hybrid, there are going to be limitations to which ones are all-wheel drive or not. If you want all-wheel drive, not every minivan comes with an all-wheel drive option. Only
2 options. Yeah, Pacifica has hybrid not all-wheel drive with a plug, so there's no non-plug-in hybrid. Here it's hybrid only. I'll go ahead and pop the hood so we can see what's going on here. Now under here we find basically the same hybrid system that we find in the RAV4, the Grand Highlander, the regular Highlander, Camry, etc. It's based around Toyota's 2.5-liter 4-cylinder engine, 2 electric motor generator units, and a single planetary gear set. So mechanically, this is a very simple system, and that's largely why it has been so reliable. Under this hood, you'll get 35 miles per gallon combined. This is the all-wheel drive model, but there are a few things to know. The most important of which is that the engine itself is producing a lot less than the 245 horsepower total, and the engine-only torque is about 179 pound-feet or so. So you will notice at higher altitudes or when the battery has been completely discharged, etc., that this is not going to feel as peppy as some of the competition. And for this model, that directly would be the Carnival Hybrid and the Pacifica plug-in hybrid. The Pacifica has a V6 with a lot more torque. this is going to feel a little bit winded at some of those higher altitude situations, especially on open highways, highway mountain passes when you're fully loaded. On the other hand, we're going to get fantastic fuel economy, definitely high 30 miles per gallon if you treat this gently, and just under 30 miles per gallon if you're driving it aggressively, fully loaded. Let's take a look at the inside, because the Sienna is the minivan that fully embraces its minivanness. And I would say this is different than the Carnival, because the Carnival's dashboard is really trying to be SUV, crossover, etc. They sacrifice a lot of storage. This is embracing all the nooks and crannies where you can jam things. I don't know, what do you think about this, Travis? I know you're not the biggest fan of this floating console, but you can store a lot of stuff in here.
I think they've created a lot of cubbies, right? I think that's what they've done a very good job of. The one thing missing is a little bit more open space, because if I put stuff down here, it's gonna be great for storage. I'm not gonna be able to access it while I'm driving. So that's the trade-off, I think. There's a lot of great cubbies. There's a lot of, there's armrests, there's cup holders, there's everything you need. My only thought is that I like a little bit more open space.
Yeah, and this is definitely one of those cubby categorization questions, I guess, because running across the dashboard, we have places where you can stick cell phones. There's a wireless charger there with bumps to keep it from moving around, but if you got big knickknacks and things, you can spread them all the way across the passenger side. We've got a holder for a smartphone to hold it like that. We've got cup holders. We have more cup holders. We have a huge storage bin right there inside. Absolutely acres and acres of fake wood. I am not the biggest fan of the fact that it's not real wood, but it's actually a pretty decent impersonation. And then down here is a place for those bigger bags. I will say, if you had just one big open storage area, you couldn't put 4 drinks on top of your bags.
No, that's true, but do we need 4 drinks? We might. We absolutely might.
You need more, because there's 6 cup holders, because there's 2 back here, and then another storage tray.
You have to turn around to reach those. So I get it, right? We have a lot of options. I hope it's just not too many options. We also have lots of cubbies. There's one here on the left of the steering wheel.
Let's be honest, you're going to be turning around anyway, because you're going to be going, Jimmy, stop touching your sister.
We also have bottle holders or cup holders here in the door as well.
Yes, we have lots of bottle holders and cup holders over there. And now this big screen perched right in the dashboard. How do you feel about this? I love the size. Kia just was like, hey, we're the biggest screen in the segment, and Toyota said, hold my beer.
Yeah. The only thing I wish was for a little less bezel. It's a lot of screen space. I just wish it was a little less bezel. Although, again, it's right up in your line of sight. It's nice and easy to access. It is big. Overall, I'm on board.
And then while we don't have Apple CarPlay connected at the moment, CarPlay does use basically the whole screen, which is a really nice touch. And we have the full LCD instrument cluster over there. And it's more of a traditional design where we have the LCD instrument cluster in that bezel, that binnacle, and then a heads-up display on top. So this is definitely peak screen in this segment as far as that goes. Over here we have soft touch materials in the upper section of the dashboard. That's a nice touch. Two-tone design. Decent number of hard plastics in here though, and that is surprising to me. This midsection, that's a hard plastic, soft touch, hard, soft touch bolster right there. Big glove compartment. And then we have a mixture of different plastics in the doors as well. So soft touch materials on top, sorry, it's really bright there, and then harder plastics below. You also noticed that the passenger seat doesn't have the same adjustability as the driver's seat, even in this platinum trim.
Yeah, and I'm a taller person, I've got a taller torso, and I was actually in the ceiling almost immediately, and so the first thing I went to do is look to adjust that. It doesn't have to be a super adjustable seat, but the fact that I can't go up and down feels like it's a miss.
Can't go up and down. This is just forward and backward recline, no four-way lumbar. If you're wondering where the battery is located, that's actually right there under the passenger seat. So that's why we have that grill there. Let's hop in the back and see how this goes, Travis. Because this has the luxurious lounge seats. Why don't you demo those for us?
So plenty of room back here. I do have a ton of headroom versus where I had in the front. So actually, if I was gonna ride in any seat but the driver, I might actually hop in the back. But I've got...
You got the climate controls there in the middle?
Yep, I got climate controls, I've got vents, lights, again, cup holders available. There's just about everything you need back here, including what I absolutely need is my HDMI port. So I can, well, watch whatever I want to here on the drop-down screen that we're gonna get here on the Platinum.
And while we're up here looking at the screen, I should back out actually just a second and mention we do have 4-zone automatic climate, not 3-zone. So, if the kids are in the back fighting over someone being hot, someone being cold, lots of options going on. Also, some additional things going on here in the center console. Let's Vanna White what's going on here.
Yeah, so we have a few other options. We have our vacuum cleaner, which is going to be connected right down here.
Let's pull that out and see how that goes.
Let's see.
Got your hose there, okay.
Yep. And if we go ahead and turn on the vacuum, Here we go. We can go ahead and clean up any of the gunk that we went ahead and brought in with us.
And how's the suction on that? I'm curious. Like,
Honestly,
how do you rate it?
It's not bad. I would say this is acceptable. It's obviously not super strong, but it's super accessible.
It's not as loud as I thought it would be actually either. And then we have our refrigerator here, which can hold a 6-pack of clearly water or sodas.
Yes, the unlabeled water, we have it here. Yep.
Quick sidebar, you might be wondering, after you're done vacuuming, where does the dust go? Well, there's the hose. You just disconnect that, close that little port off with its little rubber cover, and then you can pull that out, and this is where the filter is located. I'll go ahead and take this outside so we don't get that all over the inside of the Sienna, and that's what that looks like. You pull those little latches on the side, then the cover opens up, and voila, we have the filter there, which is replaceable, the pre-filter, and that's basically the storage compartment for, I don't know, the grass and whatever else is inside there. You can see some stuff flying out. It does not hold a lot of stuff, so maybe one bowl of Cheerios, that's all that's really going to fit inside there. If you are worried about detailing your car or really vacuuming out the whole thing, you're probably going to want a real vacuum, but that is convenient for those little messes that might occur. Also, it's worth noting, you can't start the vacuum while the vehicle's running. So if Susie has dropped her Cheerios in the back, you can't have Susie vacuum that up while you're in motion. Fun fact, this lets you change the temperature of the storage area, although I think this could be a little bit more clear. This is frozen and this is beverage. I think it could have been an ice cream cone. I think that might have been made more sense. Now, additional bottle holders. We get bottle holders for the middle seats right there. Kind of nice touch. Why don't you hop in the third row? Let's see how this goes.
All right.
Hey, you made it back there.
Yeah, not too bad. Obviously, when you have the captain's chair set up as we did there, I'll go ahead and put that back so I can sit all the way back. And this feels like it's a little bit reclined. I'll go ahead and try to adjust that in a minute. But at the recline point, I am running out of headroom here. But again, I'm one of the taller folks. You're likely not shoving me in the back first thing.
I will hop back here too, and then we can see how this goes. So yeah, in the back, one thing I noticed definitely in the Sienna and in the Odyssey both is the shape of the ceiling back here. So if you're, let's see if I can actually sit here in the corner where I'm supposed to. So if I sit here in the corner, head on the head restraint, my head's really close to the side. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it pulls in quite a bit. There's not a whole lot of left and right. And actually, it's one of those things, if we get into a hard left or right turn, one of us is going to be up here in the ceiling. Luckily, it's somewhat soft, but I'd rather not have to hit that.
It also feels definitely tighter than Pacifica or Carnival. So I would say Odyssey and Sienna both have this feel in the back, whereas the other two minivans feel a bit more open. We do, however, have some nice touches like the little sunshades there. That's
yes, definitely appreciate
nice
it, and cute that it's all nice and shaped well. One thing we don't have is room. If we had Nick here, I would not want to be either the one who sits here or have to put Nick here between us. We're gonna get a little bit tight there.
On the charging front, we have two USB-C ports over here on the passenger side rear, none on Travis's side, but both of us have these little volume knobs because you can actually put your headphones right here, plug them into the entertainment system, and everybody gets to adjust their volume. Then we have some kind of small cup holders. What do your cup holders look like over there on your side?
It's the same thing on my end. I would have traded this for one big cup holder because I'm a little bit worried about some of the things that won't fit in there. They're also fairly shallow.
Yeah, so no juice boxes, no milk boxes there in the back. Also, one thing we forgot to mention is the built-in power inverter. One benefit to being a hybrid here is we have a 1500 watt onboard inverter with a power outlet right there in the middle. So in case you're wondering, not only can you have your vacuum running and your chiller running, you can also run your microwave and microwave yourself some bacon. Now, it's time to get the Sienna out on the road. Since we're in the all-wheel drive model, clearly we should drive on this grass for a little bit longer, right?
We can go anywhere, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's the SUV. Actually, and this is the one thing I wish we saw on more of the minivans is all-wheel drive, because even a system like this, if I just stop actually, I mean, this is a grassy, loose surface. We were told we could do this because nothing happens, right? You floor it, no fuss, no muss. You accelerate, no weird wheel spin or anything like that. That is definitely one reason to get the Sienna over the competition. Of course, if you wanted a more traditional all-wheel drive system, you have the one option. Now let's get this out on more of a real road surface. We're out here driving the Sienna because we're also driving a GR Corolla, which is why we're at the Speedway here.
Yeah, we haven't had a chance to take this out on the Speedway, and unfortunately I don't think we'll be able to.
Yeah, they told us no. I did ask. We were told no Siennas on the Speedway.
Yeah.
And that's a pity because I think actually, one of the reasons that more people should consider minivans is that they have this reputation as being dreadful to drive. That's totally unfounded.
Yeah, I understand that they're not always the most exciting to drive, but when it comes to like actual handling or capability, I would take a minivan over an SUV any day. Even just start with center of gravity.
Yeah, I mean, nobody out there is going, I just love driving my Kia Telluride every day because it's so dynamic. There's very little difference in between this and a hybrid Highlander or a hybrid Grand Highlander out on the road. And the Grand Highlander is really an interesting comparison because you can get, of course, essentially the same hybrid system in the Grand Highlander, and you're going to get about the same fuel economy.
Yes, but what you lose is a lot of these pockets and a lot of this space and a lot of the practicality. It's just swallowing the minivan pill, and I think that's what people are scared of doing.
Yeah, you can put much bigger cargo in this minivan than you can in that. Now, one thing I did forget to mention actually earlier that we should address is the fact that this is the only minivan where those second row seats neither fold into the floor nor come out of the vehicle. So you do have to just deal with those minivan seats just hanging out in the second row.
When it comes to outright cargo capability, you're right. Not being able to move those is going to be a bit of a bummer. But most people are not concerned at all about removing the third or second row in their SUVs. So
that's true.
I think it's something to consider if you find yourself in that situation every once in a while, but I don't think you will very often.
I just think that it's one of those missteps where it's like, if you're going to go for the minivan, that's one of those classic minivan features that is missing here. So then there's less of a justification to get this over Grand Highlander, because at that point they're kind of the same. Yeah. I will say that, I mean, even though that third row is the only one that folds in the floor, if you have that in the floor and the other seats forward, you have so much more room.
Tons of it.
Than Grand
It's just
Highlander.
not a cargo van.
Right. It's not a cargo van, but you do have a lot of cargo capacity, a lot of cargo practicality, which is definitely a big thing. And better performance, worth noting, guys, than we had initially in the Carnival. So the last time we 0 to 60 tested a Sienna, 7.6 seconds. Nothing's changed with the drivetrain, so this should still be 7.6 seconds. The Carnival hybrid, because of its hybrid design and having a regular 6-speed automatic transmission, not only is it a hair less efficient than this, it's also slower 0 to 60, about a second at least slower 0 to 60. So there are some pros and cons. The pro on the Carnival side is the traditional feel, if that's something that you like. So if you like those regular shifts, etc. And the fact that at higher altitudes or when the van is loaded, it feels peppier, even though it's not actually peppier. So this is a twist, right? Yep. Feels peppier, not actually peppier. And then there is the part where you do get more torque. So if you are driving up the Continental Divide, if you're going from the Bay Area to Tahoe, etc., you're all loaded in the back, you are going to notice better performance in that situation, just not, daily driving around town. This is going to be peppier.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing you are going to find in this model with this hybrid system is that it's not, obviously, like we mentioned, it's not going to be as good at higher altitude, but it's also going to have a more difficult time when that hybrid battery is totally drained, which means that if you are climbing steep hills at high altitude, that's where this is going to really feel like it's bogging down. It's worth trying out if that's your scenario on the family trip. Is that going to work for you? If not, then I think you should look elsewhere.
Now, bearing in mind the design of this hybrid system, when the light turns green, you turn around the corner, actually get a reasonable amount of pull there, but you do get this sound a lot.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like what people are concerned about when they listen to the CVTs, right? It's that sound that we're not used to. It's not going to be stepped automatic. We're not getting that same, engine note change. It just gets up there and it stays up there. And like that CVT, it's not everyone's favorite.
And I know that some people really dislike that, but when I hear that sound, I'm hearing optimum efficiency and optimum acceleration. That's what happens in my brain. But I do understand that some people don't like the drone. It's not normal, etc. But again, decent grip. So we can turn right on red here. We'll just crank it. We get a little bit of wheel slip.
Yeah.
And pretty solid performance. Like it does what you want it to do, and it is just as quick 0 to 60 as most of the V6s in this segment. So the power numbers may not be at the top of the charts, but performance is actually pretty solid. And even if you're beating this on your favorite winding mountain road, I don't know why you would, but you could, you know, you're still going to be getting solid 20s on the MPG scale. Treat it gently, you're going to be in the 30s easily.
Yeah, and obviously if you're getting the hybrid, then fuel economy is one of the big pieces to you. That's why you're paying extra money for that powertrain. You just have to treat it right to get that out of it. And so as long as you understand the equation and you variable in yourself correctly, then I don't think it's not a wrong way to go.
Yeah, and there is the smoothness of this kind of hybrid. No gear changes means you're going up a hill, you're going down the hill, you don't have to wait for that. It just does what you ask it to do with the accelerator pedal. Cabin noise is pretty comparable to most of the minivans in this segment. Honestly, handling ability is pretty consistent all across the bunch. The exception being the plug-in hybrid Pacifica because it is heavy, but the regular Pacifica also just fine. So all very, very similar options there as far as that's considered. Let's talk about the fuel economy a bit because this is an interesting twist. This is rated for 35 miles per gallon. The Carnival is rated a little bit lower, no all-wheel drive, mind you. The Pacifica is rated for 30 mpg average, but in our testing, when we had the first launch versions of the Sienna at the same time as the regular Carnival, regular Odyssey, etc., and the Pacifica, oddly enough, we averaged slightly better fuel economy in the 30 mpg Pacifica, and we're not alone. A lot of other outlets that have actually done back-to-back testing with Sienna and Pacifica have seen slightly better fuel economy in Pacifica. So it's been over-indexing, and this is slightly under-indexed.
I mean, is a big part of that going to be the regenerative braking, the fact that you have a bigger onboard battery and you're able to get more back out of it? Is that going to...
Some of that could be, especially if you live in a hilly area. That's certainly something to keep in mind. With this, we have a fairly small engine. So if you do live in a hilly area, you should know that, but there's also going to be a limit. So like there's going to be a point where this cannot give you any more engine braking, no more engine braking, the battery's full, etc. In the Pacifica, you can keep regenning power really down any slope in the continental US, not a problem because that battery's so big. So you do get that more consistent feel there, which is one thing. And then you get to use that power on the bottom end. But actually, I think that maybe it has more to do with the fact that if you do have this minivan more loaded, you're just depending on the engine a bit more.
Right.
And the engine's working a little bit harder, something along those lines. Exact details are a little bit sketchy. On the other hand, I have to admit that the Pacifica is starting to feel a little old at this point in time.
Yeah, it's been out there for a minute. I mean, and it was on, maybe not cutting edge, but it was the first and still the only plug-in hybrid option out there. But that system hasn't really changed in quite a few years.
And it still has some features that you don't find here. The price is right. You're going to get probably a screaming deal on your Chrysler dealer lot. You will get the tax credit, of course, on the plug-in hybrid, but the screens are feeling a little bit old at this point. It got a refresh a while ago. It's had several refreshes actually, but instead of giving it yet another refresh or some sort of other updates, mechanical or otherwise, they just decided, you know what, we'll just resurrect the Voyager name and we'll give you a $40,000 Pacifica.
I mean, the one thing the Pacifica gets that you don't get on a lot of other options is a blackout package, right?
Ooh.
And that's still going to be...
Not sure why I need one, but yeah.
But if you're going for the sport van, then you want the blackout package.
Dark accents on the outside, my least favorite thing on a new car.
You can pay more and get it on your Pacifica.
Yes, as long as they're not shiny black though, then I'm more on board.
I think they're like a satin black. I don't think we're all the way shiny. Yeah.
Some are satin, some are shiny. This one has that big shiny black insert on the rear bumper. Not the big fan of that one because that is the exact area where it's going to get scratched as bags go in and out. You know, kids throwing things in there, kids missing the bumper, the cargo opening with the bag, etc. Those are all valid concerns about that piece of black plastic, but you do have some options trim-wise, depending on which trim level you're looking at, what that rear end looks like exactly. Obviously, for our more detailed review and comparisons, you'll have to wait until we can get one of these back at home. But I think it's easy to say that for me, the Sienna is the ultimate minivan in one way. The Carnival and the Pacifica, they're ultimate minivans also, but in different ways. This is really focused on core traditional minivan values. Lots of nooks and crannies to store your stuff on the inside, high fuel economy, high reliability. The last thing you want to worry about if you're taking a family road trip with 6 or 7 people in is to worry about whether or not your minivan is going to break down, something's going to go wrong. Obviously, we have the Toyota logo for that. And of course, the high fuel economy that you'd expect out of a Toyota hybrid system. On the downside, the drivetrain is definitely going to sound like it's struggling more than most of the competition, just simply due to its design. It's basically the same system that we find in much smaller Toyotas with a slightly different battery and motor design, obviously to make it more appropriate for the Sienna. The other thing you're not going to get is a traditional mechanical all-wheel drive system. So even though this system performs relatively well in a RAV4, when we're talking about a vehicle the size of the Sienna, just keep those expectations in mind. The Carnival, it's trying to be the unminivan. You do have the choice of hybrid or V6. It's less expensive than average in this segment, has proved to have good reliability as well. And then of course we have the Pacifica, the classic minivan option. If you get the non-hybrid, you have the convenience of the seats that fold into the floor. All 2 rows in the back, the second and third row both fold in the floor. If you want the hybrid, it's the only plug-in hybrid in this segment. It gets a federal tax credit. And of course, it's going to drive about 30 some odd miles in electric only operation. And that is significantly more than you'll find in any of the others because this has no electric only operation as far as power from the plug. Any electric only operation is just gasoline based in a regular hybrid, of course. Then there is the price tag. As equipped here, $60,270. What do you think about that, Travis? This is not an inexpensive minivan.
No, it is certainly not, but you can also spend a lot more for an SUV that does less. And so I think while you're certainly paying a lot, you're getting a lot. And if I was going to go for a minivan and I spent a lot of time around town, this is probably the direction I head.
I am a little bit torn there. The Carnival is going to be slower 0 to 60 in the hybrid format, but it's going to be less expensive for the top end trims. You aren't going to get all the features, the vacuum, etc. You're going to have to pack your own vacuum. The Pacifica, though, its plug-in hybrid system is not only going to give you fuel economy that's substantially similar to this in real world, it's going to give you all electric range. If you live in a cold state, you can remote start it in your garage without gassing out the house because it's just plugged into your wall. And of course, it's going to get a tax credit, so effectively, it's likely going to be less expensive than this. But let us know what you all think about that down there in the comment section below. And what would you choose if you were shopping for a minivan today in America? I think there are a lot of really solid options, but oddly enough, not as many people are buying minivans as they used to. And I think that is the biggest sadness of all. See all of you later.